What a charming book, Learning from Silence by Pico Iyer. I had never read Pico Iyer ever before, so for me it was a random pick, this book called Learning from Silence, when I found it on the list of the top 15 non-fiction books of 2025. Apparently the book was released in March 2025 by the Penguin Book House. I ordered it from Amazon. The back of the book showed a marked price of $5.99, but Amazon gave me a good discount and I got it for merely rupees 368. As the title of the book indicates, it is all about spending time in solitude when the world all around is driving us crazy, be it the pressures of the workplace, or a close relative passing away, or when somebody close to you is diagnosed with cancer, or worse, if your house burns down. All that happens to the author Pico Iyer, and thus he starts visiting this beautiful small Benedictine hermitage high above the sea in Big Sur, California. The book is all about the very deep and personal experiences of the author as he spends time alone in the hermitage, either in beautiful weather or crazy storms around him, in surrounding dense fog where you can't see your own extended hand, or under the crisp blue skies, be it his interactions with the other visitors there or participating in the monastic traditions at the Big Sur. All that is beautifully described in the book called Learning from Silence. The book gently floats you around over 3 decades without telling you what is happening when, because it does not matter. In fact, Pico Iyer apparently made around 100 visits over a period of 3 decades to the hermitage in Big Sur in California. So while the book takes you to the hermitage and shares Pico's experiences there, it does not tell you when the author is going there, on which date. Likewise, the book also whisks you around the globe. Suddenly Pico is in Japan or in other parts of the world, and suddenly he is back in America doing his normal writing work, and then suddenly he takes his car out and drives down to the hermitage. All this happens so gently that it takes away all the distractions from you. Everything else pales into insignificance. You just feel the environment and the purity of the surroundings of the hermitage, and you feel that you are there yourself. It is an ethereal experience just reading the book. And you marvel at the writing of Pico Iyer because the book has been written in a very quiet style, which gives you a very deep, comfortable feeling. The way he graphically describes the scenery at the hermitage almost changes the climate around you and almost gives you an ASMR feeling. And while it takes you through the experience of solitude at the hermitage, it also talks about the monks themselves and their hardships and their feelings and their ways of life and their motivations. That is all very precious because we hardly ever really give it a deep thought regarding what goes on inside the mind of a monk. Why has that person become a monk? What does it mean to be a monk? And are the monks drastically different than the rest of us? And perhaps that's the reason why His Holiness the Dalai Lama himself has commented upon the book saying, and I quote, "I trust that reading this book may help many to lead lives of greater compassion and deeper peace of mind." Unquote. Now when Dalai Lama says this, you pick the book and read. The book is not a massive one. It has just 209 pages, but it has to be savored slowly and gently. Don't read it when you are in a hurry. Read it when you have time, when you're comfortable, and in a strange way, read it when you are in solitude, and then your solitude and the book's description of solitude would create such a resonance that it will be an almost a divine experience. Pico Iyer is brilliant when he describes the monastery of Big Sur. I quote from page 15 in chapter 2. The silence of a monastery is not like that of a deep forest or a mountain top. It's active and thrumming, almost palpable. And part of its beauty, what deepens and extends it, is that it belongs to all of us. Every now and then, I hear a car door slam or movement in the communal kitchen. And I'm reminded thrillingly that this place isn't outside the world, but hidden at its very heart. For those of us who might be thinking that it is simply nuts to spend time at the monastery and there are better things in the world to hustle with, Pico Iyer tells us beautifully. The point of being here is not to get anything done. The point is only to see what might be worth doing. Checkmate is a word which comes to my mind when I read this. Solitude is, of course, different for different people, but Pico Iyer makes you ponder on page 28 when he says the following: I'm really glad there are others there with whom to share the silence. It's more, I suppose, that I'm glad to be away from the self I am when other people are around. And then you keep the book aside and think for a while. And that's what I found myself doing. You read some lines many a time in the book, then you read them again, and then keep the book aside, and then ponder over them, and then continue further. How many books make you do that? I suppose most of them try to not let you go at all. But this book, Learning from Silence, releases you gently out of self and then attracts you back. For those of us who might be thinking that you need immense amount of time and money to spend some time at Hermitage, Pico Iyer does tell us that it just took him $30 a night to spend time at Hermitage. But does concede saying the following on page 59: I'm lucky indeed to have the time and money to go on retreat. I know, a luxury that most might envy. But riches are not so simply defined. Traditionally, the historian R.H. Tawney reminds me, humans were spiritual beings who for prudence's sake took care of their material needs. Nowadays, more and more of us are material beings who, for the sake of prudence, attend to our spiritual needs. Pico Iyer's language is simple, quiet, and though I find myself reaching out to the dictionary a little bit, but when he graphically describes the scene, you almost feel you're watching a movie. Sample this from page 77, where he describes the chapel in the monastery. After dark, I head into the chapel. I count on its being empty at night, only to find a hooded figure, all in white, alone on a barely visible bench at the back of the rotunda. Then I discern another figure behind the cross in the darkened space. I walk to the side chapel where I kneel before a candle saying thanks. As I continue around the space, following the walls, I catch glimpses of the hooded figures motionless in the candlelight. When I step out again, a cat rubs itself against my legs. A light rain begins to fall. Brilliant, isn't it? In his interactions with the monks about their lives, Pico Iyer on page 97 asks a monk, it must be so hard to die to all your hopes. But I suppose that's what your life is about, a preparation of death. Yes, says the monk, we have to prepare for death. But I adamantly believe that this isn't the first and foremost a training for death. It's a training for life. It is teaching us how to live. The longing itself is the ecstasy. Later, Pico tells on page 144, how to prepare for death becomes the central question in any monastery and one without an answer. It is somewhat of a strange relief to know that perhaps we as the monks are somewhat clueless about that. On page 156, Pico mentions what one monk tells him about his monastic life. It's like marriage, but marriage, I think, to someone you can never hold or see. Marriage to a presence that's impossible to grasp and leaves you alone with a heart that's dangerously easy to doubt. So clearly, the monastic life is different, and evidently it is not possible for everyone to make the transition. However, the monks do have a sense of humor. Pico Iyer describes how during one of his walks in the night, he was carrying a broom to use as a weapon against any incidental appearance of a mountain lion, and mountain lions were indeed spotted at the Hermitage. It would be fun to see how Pico Iyer would have fought a mountain lion with a broom in his hand. But jokes apart, so Pico meets this monk whom he had met earlier too in the day, but now it is night time and Pico has the broom in his hand. So the monk says, earlier I met you in the daylight, now it is night, but I saw you with this broom and I thought you were going to put it between your legs and whoosh, right off the edge of the cliff. Or maybe you were playing curling. So it looks like mercifully, the monks do think creatively like us and have a sense of humor in spite of everything. And that is nice to know. Pico does lament on the future of monks and monasteries, stating that sometimes I worry for my monk friends all across the world. Every kind of monastery and convent is being shuttered. Lifelong commitments are too difficult in the age of short attention spans. Many, including I, love to partake of a few days of absolute clarity and calm, but shy away from giving ourselves up to all consuming hard work of a lifetime of surrender and obedience. The number of actual monks is dwindling. Pico does warn the reader that silence and solitude is not a magic cure all. He says, contemplation isn't a cure for anxiety. It just lets you look at life a little differently. The dark places don't go away when you step into silence. If anything, they rise to the surface. But here, meaning the hermitage, you can see them clearly as you never could when barreling along the freeway. In the end, the book Learning from Silence leaves you with the scenes which splash upon your inward eye, which Wordsworth once beautifully described in his poem Daffodils as the bliss of solitude. Yes, the book did remind me of the last paragraph from the poem titled Daffodils by Wordsworth, which goes like this. For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude, and then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. This book will do exactly that for you. When you're overwhelmed by the world around you, you will remember this book, and then it will give you the inner peace, sitting right at the comfort of your home with the experience of being at a hermitage. Go ahead and read Learning from Silence by Pico Iyer.